on the data, how well they do on the test. They're even given a double block of math or a double block of English. Everything is based on data. Teachers examine their, when teachers give grades, that's a form of data. And we give surveys as a form of data. But basically looking at what kids do, looking at their test results, and then based on their test results, placing them where they need to be. If they're doing extremely well, we can place them in a single block of English. If they need support, we place them where they need to be. For the English learners, we have given them a test, and based on how well they do in the test, is where we place them for their English, the ELD, English Language Development classes, what English learners get. So based on where they place them in the test is where they can place them level 1, level 2, and level 3, because the student needs to be at the level they can be successful at. If it's too high, they're not going to be successful. If actually it's too low, they won't be successful, so they'll be bored. So data is basically used. You're talking about student data, correct?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you for that. Ari, how would you use data to drive instruction?
May I understand? So I would look at, so there are many different types of data. There's obviously the macro and the micro. I'll start with the macro. One of the things we do is we're looking for trends and sort of gaps, things that don't make sense that we would have more questions about. I'll give you an example with the data that we just saw. If I have 70% of my kids are earning standard met in 11th grade English language arts, I would want at least that many to have completed their A through G requirements. And so, that would be a question systemically, are we doing anything here that possibly is gatekeeping kids from whether it's taking Algebra 2, whether it's a second year of world language, whether it's an arts pathway that they need, whether it's earning, having an opportunity for credit recovery to get a C or above so they can meet the A through G requirement. And so that's one of the things that we do sort of when we're looking globally at aggregate data. Grade schools, one thing that distinguishes them is not just looking at disaggregated data, like aggregates of groups, but also looking at individual student level data. And so one thing that I try to focus on in my role as principal at Poly for 5.5 years is individual level student data. Something called individualized pupil education plan. And so we're keeping an inventory of student data all the time. So inventory of, we can do an ACEs assessment. What kind of risk factors do the students have? In addition to their grades, in addition to their standardized test scores, attendance, how often have they missed? Have their attendance patterns changed over time? Checking their grades every grading period, from grading period to grading period, do we see dramatic drop? Is that a trigger that maybe something's going on in that student's life, so we might have to provide more individualized support? And so all the way to even parent conferences that's included in the data file, including students' likes and dislikes, sports, activities. So really you get a comprehensive profile of every individual student so we can make sure that we're providing the differentiated support that the student needs, sometimes even before they know it. I'll give you one example. One of the schools I work with, and so I supervise 12 schools. I was principal at Poly High School for 5.5 years. And one of the schools I work with is Vista Middle School, deal with a lot of really red light, high-risk students that are suffering from a lot of different traumas at the moment. And so just by implementing the system and looking at grades 5 week to 5 week, we could see we had a student that went from a 2.3 GPA to a 0.5 GPA. Immediately, by having this tool that the principal had, called in the student, found out that the student's parents were fighting at home. And it was traumatic for him and really impacted his motivation. He started to disconnect from his friends, and right away, by getting the principal connected with that student, the student cheered up, thought there was hope, and we could provide, we ended up referring the student to a psychiatric social worker. And so those are sort of different things that we're looking at, whether it's trend lines for aggregate data or even disaggregated data by group, and then individual student data. So when I'm working with a student, I have a profile and know exactly and have all the information I would need to be able to provide the support that student would need.
Thank you very much. This question is for Mr. Bennett. As principal, as a former Poly parent, sorry, what was your biggest accomplishment when you were principal at Poly?
Thank you. Well, let's first put out front that this is a team sport, right? I don't accomplish anything, we do it together. You know, in a best case scenario, we're always putting teachers and students first. They're the ones that are really pushing the envelope and making profound changes. You know, all I can do is help on the sidelines, and I'm supporting, coaching, providing opportunities for learning, growth, and development. But at Poly, I go back to the in my opening, and I talked about rigor and the need for students to be college ready. Well, one of the big ahas for me when I came in as principal is there was a huge achievement gap between Poly as a magnet center on the residential campus. And there was a huge achievement gap between magnet students and the residential students. And I'll just give you an easy example. We had one of the first couple of years I was principal, about 2013-14, 17 kids got into UCLA from the magnet, and 1 student got into UCLA from the residential. So it didn't take long to figure that the opportunities for rigor, AP classes, access to really accelerate their learning did not exist at the same level on the residential campus as the magnet campus. And so when I had that sort of coming to God moment for me, in terms of how we needed to support our students by going to that and seeing the conference from the Long Beach Promise architects, we implemented a system of rigor starting with 9th grade. We added AP classes in 11th grade, AP English language, and started a partnership with Mission College. We had a STEM cohort. We have a School for Advanced Studies program. We were the first school in LAUSD, and really the first school out of in LA County to implement AP Capstone. AP Capstone is a research program that went to the residential students, not to the magnet students. And it wasn't that we were depriving the magnet students. The magnet was already doing a lot, and we supported that program. But we needed to provide more equity, and there had to be something special that the kids in the residential campus identified with. And so by the time I was done, we went from 24% students going to 4-year to 59% students going to 4-year. And that was in 5.5 years. And the gap, all of that change happened in the residential campus. Because the same 75-80% was occurring in the magnet. And there were a lot of reasons why it was at that and not higher, but the magnet was a high-performing magnet. Everybody was committed to it, and we needed to bring some of that personalization, some of the opportunities for rigor, some of the opportunities for individualized attention to the students in the residential campus so they could compete. And so that fuel really was what led to the increase in college enrollment rate. So out of all the things, I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Thank you very much. This next one is for Ms. Bowden. If you are a principal next school year, how will you tackle absenteeism effectively?
Absenteeism for the...
I'm assuming students, it doesn't clarify.
Okay. Okay. Well, first of all, we do have the PSA worker who is already going out. She goes out, makes home visits, and we're actually tackling already by grade level. For instance, right now, the 11th grade had the lowest absentee rate in between the 4 grades. So she focused on the 11th grade and getting those kids back into school. So we're getting a second PSA worker also, so we would have 2 PSA workers to actually focus on getting kids back into school. And so what I could do is I could support like incentives for kids. We had a March Madness incentive. We had a competition between the grade levels to see what grade level would win, and we gave a prize to the kids. Actually, 11th grade actually we did not won because we were actually able to turn them around. So basically it's examining the data, looking at what kids are absent, starting in the first month. A kid who's absent the first 3 months of school, so if they're absent, the first 3 days of school, if they're absent in August for 3 days, already that child's at risk for very high absenteeism. So we would track that child and follow that child and see what that child is doing. And with the PSA workers, because that would be their focus, they can track all of those kids and they can follow those kids. They can go out and make the home visits, get the kids there. They can work with the counselors because some kids have family problems that prevent them from coming to school. So they can also work with the family problems to get the kids to school and provide support for the families in order to get the kids back in school. And then you track the kids and you work with the kids so they don't fall into that chronic absenteeism. So we catch them before they get to the chronic absenteeism and follow them and make sure that we're reaching out to them, make sure that we're reaching out to their parents, make sure that we're providing them the support that they need to get the kids back in school. So I assume that answers the question. I didn't ask the question, but absenteeism.
Thank you very much, and if you don't mind standing, this next question is going to be for each one of you as well, too, so since you're up, okay, this is from an employee, it looks like. What reassurances can you give us that you will not only make a good principal for Birmingham, but a long-term and stable one? And there was an emphasis on the fact that there have been numerous principals the last several years.
Okay. What was the first one of the question again, please?
What reassurances can you give us that you will not only make a good principal for Birmingham, but a long-term and stable one?
Well, I can make the commitment here, right now, that I'll be here for at least 5 years. I have already started programs. And I want to see through. We started working with the department chairs. We started working with the grade level leads. We started implementing things that I'm excited about, that I would like to see, that's going to take time. For instance, working with the grade level leads, we're trying to find something that an advisory or home that all kids can connect to. That's a long-term plan. That plan, we just started working this year. We're going to be working next year. It'll probably be another whole year before we even start implementation. Also, I'm working with the department chairs on the Danielson framework. That's going to take time to implement. So I'm not trying to implement any changes quickly, because as we know at Birmingham, we've done quick, it doesn't work. So when you think about PBIS, which I did implement, we went to classes for 2 years before we even introduced it. So my plan is to go slow, plan thoroughly before we implement, and it's going to take implementation, it's going to take at least 2 years. And then once it's implemented, I want to see how it works. I just don't want to, I want to see the fruit of our labors. It's not my labors, it's our labors. I want to see the fruit of our labors. So I would say I would just commit to at least 5 years. If you guys want me past 5 years, then I'll stay.
Do I answer the attendance question first? Do I answer the attendance question first? And then go to this, or?
What reassurances can you give us? No.
Okay. And so I'm 47 years old. So, retire around 62. So you got about 15 years or so. And so I was at Poly for 19 years. And, they had to drag me out kicking and screaming. And I've done the district office now for 2 years. And you can see I'm ready to come back to a school site. And for me, it's coming back home, because this is where I grew up. And I started running track here in 4th grade every year until I went to high school. And then was here, my brother went here, my sister went here, my aunt went here, back when Sally Field went here. So you got a long time with me, if you so choose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've had a request so that we can get more cards, more questions answered, to limit the answers to responses to 2 minutes each. Okay? Either talk really fast or answer well. And so I'll start the timer as soon as one of you starts speaking. Okay. So this is the same question for both of you. If you are selected as the principal, what are the first 5 things you would change and why? Artie, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't change anything, times 5. And so you can't, as an outsider, come in and start changing things. You have to listen and learn and talk to people. And so the reality is it would take me time to build relationships. Relationship building is the most important thing I would be doing. And really, in education, it's a relationships business. And so that continues on. But unless I know people, unless I know the school, unless I talk to the students, get to know the PTA, parents, and really have a deeper understanding of the culture of the school, I can't come in and start changing anything. And so I think it would be insincere if I sort of gave you, a cookie-cutter answer about, well, we need to do this or we need to do that, because it's not authentic. One of the first things I would need to do is a needs assessment, get a sense from the stakeholders what's working and what's not, and then we would go from there. And so I hope that doesn't disappoint. Maybe you were looking to get rid of something, but I could not commit to that at this time.
Okay, well, I wouldn't change any, I also would not change anything. I've already started the things that I think that needed to be changed. We've already started making those changes. So I would not change anything. What I would do is go deeper into what we're already doing. Plus, as I said earlier, Birmingham has been through enough changes. I don't think that we really need any major changes right now. We need to just continue with what we're doing and continue to improve on what we're doing. And that would be what I would do instead of, like I said, I've already started implementing the changes that I think that need to be made, and I'm going to stick with those.
I have to say some of these I'm not sure if they're for both or just Mr. Bennett, because you don't really know Mr. Bennett, so I'm going to I'm not going to word them exactly as you might have, but we'll get the answer. So there are times, Mr. Bennett, when teachers have been able to vote on certain things, one of them being an advisory. So what I want to know is, if you are the CEO, would you support adding an advisory period, even if the teachers, maybe not all, but maybe some are against it?
Great question. A lot of people have differing strong opinions about advisories. And what I'll say is this. I think this is true for a lot of organizations, but I can tell you what I know about schools. You cannot implement anything successfully unless you have buy-in from the vast majority of stakeholders. At Poly, when we introduce a new initiative or a change, a lot of times, according to the contract, be 50% plus 1, sometimes 2/3. That threshold was not high enough for us. One of the things we did, we converted to because we were looking for more charter-like autonomies. At Poly, we converted to a pilot school. Pilot school has an elected work agreement, which is very controversial in LAUSD. And everything was about sharing the information as broadly as possible and really giving teachers control of the elected work agreement. So that, when I met with our chapter chair at that time, said, look, according to pilot school manual, principal has a right to decide who's offered an extension year to year. I don't need that. That's not why we're going pilot. We're not going pilot to get rid of teachers. We're going pilot to support teachers. And so, in the end, we ended up getting 92% vote for something that's extraordinarily controversial in LAUSD. And to this day, there's only one large comprehensive high school that was able to vote to convert, and they did so with 92%. That was Poly High School.
And Ms. Bowden, since you are the person who's really dealt with the advisory and have dealt with the teachers, how are you moving forward, or what are some of the ideas that you have?
Well, we did not have the teacher support, so we put a pause on the advisory because we did not have enough teacher support. And what we're doing, I have a committee, great local needs, and so we're working to find something that will work for Birmingham. And as I said, we've gone out into other, we've seen advisors at other schools. And until I can get teacher support, it'd be foolish of me to implement an advisory because it wouldn't work. We've tried it without teacher support. We get compliance. We don't get teachers who actually have buy-in. I want teachers to want to do it, and I want them to believe in what we're doing. So unless you have buy-in from the teachers, it's not going to work, because the teachers are the soldiers on the ground that are actually going to implement the job. So it would be foolish to implement advisory without supported teachers. So we're working on finding something so that we can get the supported teachers.
This is for both of you. So one question is, how are you going to empower the students and nurture their talent, student, teacher, and staff in the community to be a common core? It says, how are you going to empower the students and nurture their talents, and then I guess students, staff, teachers, and the community. I guess the question is, how are you going to make them a common core? How are you going to take the teachers, the students, the staff, nurture them and make them a common core or a community?
Okay. So what we're, so I think I've already started working on this. What we need to do first of all is open communication among the adults on campus and create transparency among the adults on campus. We need to create an environment for everybody that everybody is trusting, everybody's willing to take chances. It's never going to be Shangri-La, it's never going to be, Nirvana, but it could be a place where people feel safe, people feel empowered, people feel engaged, people want to bring their best to school and to work. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want, right now we did a survey to find out what people were dissatisfied with. So based on what those dissatisfactions were, we're moving forward. We've created some committees. The committees are going to work together to improve the culture and the satisfaction of the adults on campus. And by creating the satisfaction of the adults, that will increase the satisfaction of the kids, because if the adults are happy, the kids will be happy. And already I think we have a place, the kids have electives, the kids have lots of choices. I think that we could create a better environment for the kids if we can connect the kids to an adult. So the kids have an adult they can go talk to no matter what. So if you're having a bad day, maybe somebody in your family died, there's no one you can talk to. They can go talk to that one teacher. That's creating a supportive environment for the kids. So that's my goal, to create a supportive environment for the kids. That's why we have the social workers that the kids can talk to. And then the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is a safe environment for the adults, where the adults feel safe to do their best and to give their best and to be willing to take chances and to be willing to communicate with each other and communicate back and forth with administration. So that's my goal, is to create that environment.
Timing is everything.
This really feels like a debate. So, I am a powerful believer in student voice. I think it's a huge way to increase student engagement. So, my last 2 years at Poly, I implemented a principal-student advisory council. And the way that was chosen, I took 2 9th, 2 10th, 2 11th, 2 12th graders. They had to represent every different subgroup. So we had students from ESL, students with disabilities, African American students. We had AP students. We had we made sure we covered the gamut of every subgroup that we could think of that needed a voice at the school. They weren't based on grades. We weren't looking at just AP students. We looked at students that were struggling. We needed every student's voice to represent. They had to fill out an application, explain why they wanted to participate on the advisory council, and then me and I had a student co-lead for the council went through the applications. We brought in the kids and interviewed them. I can't tell you how I mean, first of all, it's just gratifying, because it's nice when you're dealing with adult issues a lot in this role, to have the chance to, like a scheduled chance to sit and talk to kids. And that ended up being one of the things that I enjoy the most. But it's incredible what information I can get there that I can't get from the adults on campus. And sometimes it's a matter of adults want to tell me what they think I want to hear. Students don't care about that. And so that's the beauty of it. So I mean, all the way down from one of the girls on the advisory council informed me that there were no bathroom covers in the girls' bathroom, like seat covers. And there hadn't been for like 2 years. It's like, how is it that I didn't have that information? So there are so many critical elements that we can find out just by talking to the kids and giving as many outlets as possible. It gives us a better chance to serve their needs.
Thank you very much. Next question is for both of you. Ari, since you're already up, what are your feelings toward unionized labor? Are you supportive? Why or why not?
I believe in collective bargaining. I happen to be a member of a union right now, ALA. I was a member of UTLA as a teacher, so people often forget that principals were once teachers. And so, you know, I think the collective bargaining is not something that gets in the way of education. If anything, it just empowers groups of people. And so, the bottom line is, it doesn't matter whether there's a union or not. You have to get buy-in from people. You have to get buy-in from the students. You have to get buy-in from the teachers. You have to get buy-in from classified staff. You have to get buy-in from every stakeholder there. Right? There's no union for parents, but we still have to make sure that we're reaching out and getting input from them. And so it is truly, as I said before, it's a team sport built on relationships. And relationships are sort of the glue that helps the school operate efficiently when there's trust and transparency and we're communicating with all the stakeholders. Collective bargaining has nothing to do with that. It's not relevant in that case. Thank you.
Well, I believe in unions. When I first started teaching in elementary school, I was a chapter chair. And I actually come from a family of union members. My late stepfather, Ernie Smith, was actually an area chair for UTLA. So I don't see anything wrong with unions. I believe that they have their rightful place. And it comes back to my feeling of treating people with dignity and respect. If you treat people with dignity and respect and follow the contract, then you've created a positive relationship and a positive atmosphere in the schools. The union is just there to make sure the administrators are on track and doing what they're supposed to be doing. As I said, I was a chapter chair, so I believe in unions. I like working with the UTLA rep. I like working with our ASCII rep. I just feel that, just like everything else, relationships are the most important, and being kind to people and listening to people. Like I listen to people. People come into my office and I listen. I think people want to feel listened to. And if they do, that decreases the animosity that is sometimes created. So that you diffuse that, then you use it's a body of people, and it's a contract. But it's a contract that we can all work together with as one unified force to do what's best for kids.
There's several questions about special education, so once again, I'm kind of going to combine them and ask for Ms. Bowden and Mr. Bennett. So there are many special education students in every school, not just Birmingham. And so one of the issues is, what will you do at Birmingham for the special education and to move them? Well, first of all, one of them is, how are you going to close the achievement gap between special ed and general ed? And secondly, for some students who perhaps, it's going to be more difficult, what would you do to help them find jobs or have a career path? And also, what's your philosophy about the implementation of IDEA?
Thank you. So, I believe passionately in the unlimited potential of all students. Part of the problem in the district that I work with is a lot of kids in some cases have been institutionalized by being segregated for years and years and years. The achievement gap is profound, and it's not getting any smaller. So the question is, what kind of opportunities can we provide students in the least restricted environment? I err towards the least restricted environment. One question that I would have, and I would want to look at in school is, how many students with disabilities are in AP classes? How many are going to university, completing their A through G requirements? Are we just putting that group over here and focusing on whole school data and not looking at the subgroup data? I see on the California dashboard, there's a large achievement gap with English learners, students with disabilities, and the rest of the student body. And so my first question would be, what kinds of rigorous learning opportunities are we providing? Or are we not? And that's a question we would have to ask. And so, regarding the law, I believe, again, in least restricted environment. To the best of our ability, we need to put students in classes with credentialed teachers that are teaching and with support, with resource support, whether it's special aid program, another teacher in the room to help. But we need to give them access to the highest level of learning activities and opportunities that they can have. Because the only chance that we can diminish the achievement gap is giving them the rigor that the other students are presently accessing. Without that access, we have no chance of changing and decreasing the achievement gap.
Repeat the question again, please.
What was the question? Okay. The question was, I'll use my teacher voice. The question was that we have special education students. What are you going to do to help close the achievement gap between general education and special education? And what are you going to do to help those students who might not be able to go and get good jobs in university if their path is maybe not as more career technical or career education?
Okay, well, already here at Birmingham, we have what to help special education students. We have what's called co-teaching, where we have a special education teacher in the classroom. So we have special education children in the classroom, which makes it a heterogeneous classroom, so that special education kids are exposed to kids who are doing better. We have 2 teachers in the classroom. The special education teacher who is taught and is specializing in the requirements for special education, and then you have the general. When the co-teachers work together, it's a seamless environment. I've seen it. You can't